this is a chance, or like they're trying to teach us to actually rely on our own and maybe to prioritize things that matter to us as a country. But you see, if only health was a core priority of the country, I know that yes, the government has maybe they have tried to do like put in place health programs to guide and support people and all, and we do appreciate that. But you see, health is a wide thing, like I mentioned earlier. Even in this health, we have aspects that are actually prioritized more than others, and as a result, you have people who are actually still suffering more than others. So yes, first of all, it has to be a process. If first of all, if government decided maybe to increase and say we are allocating health that 15% of the national budget, that 15% would go a long way in trying to fill up most or some of the gaps that the Trump era has left behind. That's the first thing, increasing the budget to make sure that actually they prioritize health as a key sector. They will prioritize maybe security and other things to talk about that.
What are some of the major gaps that you think the funding should go to? Because when you speak to the Minister of Finance, or you speak even to President Museveni, the other people, they will tell you, actually, you are not looking at the investments that are being made across the board that feed into the health sector. Because they will tell you, for instance, for a woman to go to hospital, they need a road. They have worked on good roads. They will tell you that's part of funding the health sector.
The first thing that government should actually prioritize in maybe increasing the budget, where they're talking about money, one is the commodities and supplies that have to be in facilities of the hospitals. I'll give an example. In this day and age, we still have women who are dying due to preventable maternal mortality issues. You go to a facility to give birth, you're heavily pregnant, you get there, and there are no commodities. And I'm talking about life-saving commodities, things to do with blood, things to do with gloves to attend to you. Like issues that you can actually buy at maybe 1,000 shillings at the most. Let's like the glove, for example. So first of all, you should prioritize maternal health issues because women are still dying. They are failing to access. If they access the facility, they are failing to get the commodities because they're not available. If they are available, then they're not of good quality. So we need government to come up and prioritize maternal health. We need government to come up and prioritize HIV/AIDS because we still have people who go to a facility to get drugs, and the drugs are not there. And this is the reality of what is happening, maybe outside Kampala, but somewhere in the different areas where we work in the field. So people are going to actually become resistant to the drugs that they have been getting at a free if we do not prioritize aspects of HIV. We need government to still come up and prioritize shelters for survivors of gender-based violence or even sexual gender-based violence. Every day on a daily, girls and women out there are raped and failed. Maybe even men are also raped and failed. Sure. And then, even when they're we handle issues of girls who are 3 years who are raped and defiled. But even then, after they've been defiled, how do you take them back to the communities to face the same abusers? If we had shelters to rehabilitate them, if we can give more money to support these girls to be able to go through the phase that they are facing and lead this to receiving after justice, it would be a good thing. I would go on and on, but the point is we still have areas which are unprioritized, mostly in the aspects of reproductive health, which I think for me, I would make a case for them to also be prioritized and allocated money. That way we can be able to talk about the gap that you're trying to fill of the Trump's era, because previously, before the Trump's era came through, we had money to support many of these people to enjoy their reproductive health care. But right now that the money is not there, where are we pushing them? They're going to suffer more and more if the government does not come up to actually fill up those gaps.
All right. Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90. Today we are looking at the impact, the state of right to health in Uganda, the implications of President Trump's executive order, and how Uganda should react. We touched a little bit on the issue of sexual and reproductive health rights and how it has been affected by this decision. It's a critical area for women and girls. Can you share with us what we are likely to see if the government does not respond quickly to fix the gaps that exist there? What are we likely to see going forward?
Yeah, maybe just to also add on to what Esther had said. Uganda is independent. The problem we have is that we are not self-sufficient. And when you're not self-sufficient, other people have to come and help you. So until we reach a point where the country is self-sufficient, all our problems, we can finish them. I was about to speak Luganda, I forgot to. And our problems, we can finish them. Then we shall not have any external interference. But until we reach that point. So for me, for people who keep saying we are independent, put your money where your mouth is. What are we likely to see? I think the first thing that for us as civil society, we are suffering, and even as people continue to laugh at us on social media, is that there is a shrinking civic space. 84% of our budgets for most of the civil society organizations who are being supported by monies from the US. This is dwindling. And it's not just the US alone. Also, other development partners are slowly pulling out of the country in terms of supporting. It means that civil society, people are not just losing jobs, but the support that has been going into the communities through civil society in terms of giving healthcare services, making sure that there is empowerment, people even educating the girl child. All that money is gone. Right now, we are in an election season. By now, you would have had civil society has drummed up efforts to do voter education, to do, all these things around the observer status, because all those things. But people are not doing it. Why? Because there is no money. And this means that the space has shrunk. People can no longer carry out their activities. And the benefits that come with us trying to hold the government accountable are no longer there. The other thing that we are going to see that is going to, of course, impact on women and girls is that there is going to be an increase in stigma. For us as feminists, we are already facing it. People have abused us left, right, and center. Every time you say, I am a feminist, they just want to present you for stoning so that the whole society can collectively come against you. But this increase in stigma and bias comes from the fact that people have now demonized human rights. And they look at the empowerment of the woman, the empowerment of the girl child as something that is taking away from the boy child. So monies are now being swept to support what they call anti-gender and anti-rights groups. And this is why we see things like the Interparliamentary Family Conference coming up, where they are coming to tell us that you as women, your role is to support men. You cannot be leaders in your own families. Without a man, you are nothing. Without children, you are nothing. That is what they are telling us in these family conferences. Not just here in Entebbe, but also in Kenya, where they also went and had the Pan-African Family Conference, where white people came from the US to come and tell us Africans how to practice our family values within Africa. And we wondered, now, how is this happening? When did white people become Africans to tell us what their values are?
Spectrum 101 FM 90. Let's go for a break now. When we return, I will still have the two guests in studio. That is Ms. Rose Wachikwana, Advocate and Deputy Executive Director, Women Pro Bono Initiative, and Ms. Esther Dafa. She's an Advocate and Program Officer, Strategic Litigation Program, Center for Health, Human Rights and Development. Keep your comments coming by the WhatsApp line 0703 090 090. Spectrum continues after this break.
Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90.
Looking for an unforgettable experience in Kampala? Discover Sheraton Kampala Hotel, the city's ultimate gathering place. Savor a culinary experience with local and international cuisines, relax at the serene Choga poolside, or get rejuvenated at our fitness center and spa. From the iconic Equator.
A topic of discussion, we are looking at the right to health and the implications of President Trump's executive order and how Uganda should respond. My guest, Ms. Rose Wachikwana, Advocate and Deputy Executive Director, Women Pro Bono Initiative, and Ms. Esther Dafa, Advocate and Program Officer, Strategic Litigation Program, Center for Health, Human Rights and Development, SRHR. Keep your comments coming by the WhatsApp line 0703 090 090. Tell us what's your view about what we're discussing. How can we cope up as a country in light of the fact that the Trump administration did cut funding to the health sector and cross-cutting issues? Also, we are living in an era where donors are starting to be inward-looking, and therefore, going forward, we are likely to lose more funding, and therefore, we need to be sustainable as a country. What do we need to do? Now, ladies, let's look at some of the best way forward. There's been an argument in this country that we have a lot of funding, but maybe we don't know how to use it. I don't know if you agree with that kind of statement. I've heard from so many people, including the Inspector General of Government, the IGG, narrating how funds are stolen. Actually, we are told the 10 trillion stolen annually. where can we get the funding to be able to cover these gaps? Well, they will ask you, if you go to Parliament with this proposal and saying government needs to cover the gap, they'll tell you, where are you seeing the money?
I think if we were transparent with the amount of money that we had as a country, we would more or less cover our budget. The challenge we have right now is the insurmountable beast called corruption, where people, like, I don't know if it has now become a lifestyle, a life choice, but corruption has become the order of the day. And there is no accountability for anyone. And also this plays into the declining rule of law that we have, that you can't hold anyone to account for any of the money stolen. All the time the Auditor General is presenting reports in Parliament. They are discussed for a few days and then they are put under the rug. No one is held accountable. No one is arrested. No one even refunds the money. So you wonder, this country, until we deal with that demon called corruption, there is no way we can be able to cover the gaps. Because even with our development partners, and what we have heard from them is that they have sometimes insisted on funding the government to provide social services, education, healthcare, and infrastructure, you name it. But when they fund through the government just eats all the money. And then they say the road is supposed to be there. You go, there is no road which is there. They go, say they are going to put here healthcare services. They are not there. So I feel we need to address the issue of corruption. And maybe I don't want to delve so much into the politics of the day, but this system of patronage that we have as a country, where people wield power through money. I give you money, you give me a vote. I give you money, you give me a decision in Parliament. I go and vote yes or I vote no on a bill, depending on how much you have paid me. That system of patronage that is being used or wielded in order to make sure that things run in a particular direction has completely destroyed our country.
Is that not hearsay?
It is not hearsay, it is true. The entire MPs received 100 million just recently.
Well,
they passed the UPDF bill.
I'm not an MP, so I will not conclusively say that I received the money.
So they received the money and voted yes for the bill. And this is not the first time we are seeing this happen. There is a pattern that has been documented where they receive money in exchange for their voting in the parliamentary house. And they are not alone. Even when you come down to the local government, to do anything for you, you must first give kitu kidogo. So we must address the issue of corruption if we want to be able to properly fund our budget. But where things have reached, we have no choice. As a government, we must fund our own social services. And for us now, it's to turn our eyes to the government and ask them, what plans do you have in order to cover some of the gaps? Our partners have gone away. You have abused them. They have moved on. So now the marriage has been left between us, the citizens, and the government, which rules over us. How are you going to serve us as Omuntu Wawansi?
And Esther, I remember vividly when this story of MPs receiving money actually broke out. The following day, there was a discussion in Parliament about the ministerial statement of the Minister of Health. And the report was the sector needed more 1.7 trillion shillings, which was missing. Yeah. And actually, one of the components in that particular, unfunded gap was 58 billion shillings, 58 billion shillings to revamp the national ambulance, system. And the MPs were complaining in my constituency, there's no ambulance. But what would be your advice? Where can we find the money?
I think for me, I would want to first talk about the aspect of accountability. We have to hold ourselves accountable as a country. If you go back and look at the previous happenings in Uganda, or even to what the statistics show right now, health is one of those sectors where we are always begging for a supplementary budget. Year in, year out, they'll allocate a particular budget to the health sector. But as time goes on, maybe 6, 7, 8 months through there, we actually realize that we have so many unfunded priorities. And again, the Minister of Health is busy begging, for lack of a better word, begging for supplementary budget to be allocated to the health sector, which shows us that actually we need to prioritize health. If you go back to the history again of the GAG rule and maybe why have we been having all these funders on board? It is because they realized, and we realized as well, that we we have so many areas that need to be, handled more, There are so many areas where money has been allocated in minimal quantities, and therefore these donors, actually some of them, if you look at it from the other point of view, they came in to somehow ensure that actually those unfunded priorities, maybe they add more effort to be able to ensure that actually people are able to maybe have money for those particular priorities, which have not been one of the key priorities of government. But again, back to the health budget. So I think as a country, we need to hold ourselves accountable. If you allocate the money, first of all, how much are you giving the health sector? Because it's one of those core areas as well, The way we look at education, the way we look at security, the way we look at other sectors. I feel like we also need to be intentional while planning for the health sector, because everything starts and stops with their budget. If you give the health sector little money, how do you expect them to attend to all the 1,000 plus Ugandans who need healthcare services? How do you expect the Ministry of Health to actually provide all these basic, healthcare services in all these public facilities? We have health center 3s, we have health center 2s, we have general hospitals. How do you expect Omuntu, for lack of a better word, who trusts in the healthcare system, maybe to go to a health center 2 or a health center 3 and get the basic services? Honestly speaking, Kenneth, if you go and know what is happening on the ground in the different areas, like different districts where we work, you'll actually wish you want to leave Kampala and go there and help that person, because they're going through so much. Like I mentioned earlier, the health sector has been a bit deserted. We come and talk about the basic things in health, but are we tackling the main issue that actually affects that person who is deep down in my village somewhere there in Iganga, to be able to actually go and access a service? Or if they go and they find there are no doctors, because doctors are busy. We all know what doctors do. They're like opening up facilities, where they can be able to go and privately maybe sell medicine. But are we supporting that person who is right now affected the most by the global gag rule? Because for them, they don't even know anything about Trump. Maybe they have no idea of what is happening right now in the country, because it's me and you that know. But if they got to maybe be able to access services, are they accessing them? So I think for me, we have to hold ourselves accountable as a government and be realistic on what is happening in our healthcare system before we start, talking about all these other issues.
Maybe, Kenneth, I just wanted to add one small thing. We've been pushing for the National Health Insurance Bill since 2018 for them to pass it, so that partly the healthcare system can have funding that comes from the citizenry with a contribution from the government. But the parliament has not prioritized the passing of this bill. It has been tabled time and time again. The last we heard from parliament was that they were going to the Ministry of Finance to ask them where the money is going to come from to fund this particular bill. So it establishes a scheme where the government contributes, but also private citizens contribute, and then people from there it almost works like a health insurance. So we want them to pass it. And I think that's one of the critical ways that the government can find funding for health.
All right. Now let's look at some of the cross-cutting issues. Earlier on, when we were talking about issues of sexual and reproductive health, a number of issues came across, including the issue of abortion. She mentioned this, Esther. Some of these issues, they will tell you, rather than promote it, actually Trump has done well. So why do you want to abort? Abortion is not a family value thing in Uganda. And there are a number of other issues there. You even hinted on the family parliamentary conference that was held, some of the issues that were coming out. What would you say to people who actually say that?
I would tell them it's not about promotion. It's about providing critical health care. Because ultimately, a person who has an abortion will need health intervention. It's not jail that they need. They need to go to the hospital so that they can get some.
They don't want that abortion in the first place. That's the issue.
I think people delude themselves that they are the ones to decide. If you're not the one who's pregnant, why would you presume that you're the one who's going to decide for the woman who's pregnant?
But why did you get pregnant in the first place?
Because you had sex. So, and as long as we have sex, pregnancies will exist, whether you want it or not. I think we need to stop trying to decide for other people what they can be able to do. When a person gets pregnant, they are the ones who will ultimately decide whether to keep the baby or not to keep the baby. And for us as a society, what we need to strengthen are the mechanisms, the support systems, which are able to support this person to carry the pregnancy to term. Because if we are saying that we are pro-family, we are pro-life, then where are the supporting mechanisms? We look at policies that we have where they say if a girl is found pregnant, then she must be expelled from school. So you make a girl to choose between pregnancy and her education. What is she going to choose, Kenny? She has to choose her education because there is a future there. So many girls are forced into abortion because of a policy that has been put in place by our society. When we look at things like maternity leave, right now we only have 3 months maternity leave. The Ministry of Health is recommending that women need at least 6 months exclusively breastfeeding their children. How are we able to do that? We look at women who end up pregnant but are unemployed. How are we supporting them to be able to sustain those children through the pregnancy? So I think we should stop asking ourselves how we stop women from aborting and ask ourselves how are we supporting women to perform their motherhood and their maternal function within society. Our support systems leave. The Ministry of Health is recommending that women need at least 6 months exclusively breastfeeding their children. How are we able to do that? We look at women who end up pregnant but are unemployed. How are we supporting them to be able to sustain those children through the pregnancy? So I think we should stop asking ourselves how we stop women from aborting and ask ourselves how are we supporting women to perform their motherhood and their maternal function within society. Are our support systems strong enough? Otherwise, women will continue to have abortions.
Yeah.
Let's hear from you, sir.
And maybe just to mention, Kenneth, that you see, there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation on this issue. First of all, we are not promoting abortion, We are not promoting abortion at all. We are only saying that unsafe abortions continue to be among the leading causes of maternal mortalities in Uganda. Every time we talk about a woman has died in hospital or giving birth or like all those issues, just know even when the Ministry of Health gives out statistics, we all know that the first cause of maternal mortalities or deaths or even morbidities is the hemorrhage, the postpartum hemorrhage, like, which I would say maybe overbleeding. Yes, overbleeding. That is the first leading cause. And unsafe abortion is like number 2 or maybe number 3 around there. But that alone, and for as long as women continue to have unsafe abortions, we shall keep saying every day, women continue to die, like due to preventable causes. We are not promoting abortion. All we are saying is provide the necessary basic facilities, commodities for women to be able to access maybe post-abortion care, to be able to access that emergency care that they need when they're in that situation, instead of giving them a platform to go and seek an unsafe abortion or even lose their life or even, get a morbidity from there. So I'm not promoting, but because there is so much misinformation on the subject at hand, people just come out and say you're promoting. They will not know, they won't look at the circumstances of the unsafe abortion. If I'm the girl who is pregnant, what made me go for an unsafe abortion? Maybe I went for an emergency care service and I was denied the service. Maybe I was raped or defiled, God forbid, by someone who, maybe who is in authority over me or a boyfriend or whoever it is. And because I was raped and defiled, I find myself saying, no, I don't want maybe to give birth to a child from my relative or whoever it is. And I choose to maybe seek that care. So we are not promoting. All we are saying is so many women out there are dying over something which you can actually be able to prevent. How? By enabling them to access emergency care to be able to sustain.
Doesn't the Constitution create an avenue for abortion, circumstances under which abortion is permitted?
It restricts it. It restricts it according to our laws to where the life of a woman is in danger. So until there is a maternal illness, then you can have a permissible abortion. But I rarely want to restrict myself to semantics, largely because even with the restrictions in the law, women continue to have abortions. And they have them almost every single day. So I think we need another way of handling the question of abortion rather than just focusing so much on telling women that you can't. Clearly, women are big-headed. They are not listening. So what else can we do? Let us listen to them. And they tell us what as a society we need to do in order to support them to perform their maternal functions.
All right, very quickly, we have comments coming in. I'll begin with this one. Hello, Spectrum. Thanks for the show. I acknowledge the loss and sympathize with all the affected. But again, we are not Trump's responsibility. Ugandan's healthcare is not America's responsibility. They owe us no explanation. Let's stop validating ourselves as victims. Let's let government do what it's obligated to do for its people. That's a comment from Joanne. Then we have another comment here. The challenge in our country, the challenge in this country, it isn't practical. Given the resources we have in terms of geographical features, minerals, talents, with all this, the government can't be practical to use this, yet our sister countries are doing this. With all the years we have been funded, we can't show anything. You can correct me if there is, but the fact it ain't there. In fact, we are like a person who has gone to school and come out without a reflection of being in school. That is Mr. He says he's a fighter for boy-child rights in Uganda, and he says thanks for the show. He actually calls himself Mr. Man. Then we have another comment. Good evening, ladies. The issue of national health scheme is very important. And then we have another comment. The issue of good evening, ladies. The issue of national health scheme is still a mirage, simply because government has no worthy hospitals and facilities which form the bedrock of that project. We can't just rely on private hospitals for plain reason they are profit-oriented. It says, good luck on your dreams. Salon Gonsereko made that comment. Then we have another comment from another listener here who says, your house, your rules, sadly, hubby is, I think this is a comment for another discussion that featured on the radio before we actually came on air. Let's get a quick response to the comments that we received from the listeners.
Maybe I can go first.
Please.
Yeah, so in terms of what, I think to say that we've received funding for years on end, that is a bit misleading and nothing has changed. That is very, very misleading. As I told you, I come from a women's rights activist background, and I can tell you that for us as women, we have made strides. And we have made strides not because government is funding women's rights activism, but because external partners are funding our activism. When you look at this thing of educate a girl child, educate a nation, the fact that now we have parity, when I talk about parity, we like almost equalness, when it comes to the education of the boy child and the girl child, for us, that is a win. It means we have moved strides. A few years back, Ugandans never believed in educating the girl child, but see how far we have come. See how far we have come in terms of having women representation in areas of politics. So for us, we see wins from where we are coming from because there are very many great strides that have been made. And so there is change that has happened and a lot of change that has happened. But of course, there are still so many things that are going wrong that need to be addressed. In terms of US not having any obligation, I don't think that is correct. I don't want to sound like a beggar or to sound that we completely must rely on the US in order to survive. But when you look at the human rights system, there is an obligation that is created internationally. We are not the ones. You know, the UN was set up by the global north, Europe, US. They sat down and set up this human rights system. And in it, they have legal obligations to support developing countries. So we are not coming to this relationship saying that we are begging. It is because they recognize the history of colonization and how Africa was plundered by imperialists, and they took the wealth and built their own countries, and it aids their way of almost, I don't know how to put it, reparations. So they give you back a little bit of what they stole. We are not taking things that are not due to us. They are due to us. They plundered our country. They plundered our continent, and up to now, they are still plundering. See what is happening in the Congo.
One will tell you that you are also plundering your country, as you claim they plundered.
And now that is the discussion that we are having around accountability, that our leaders have copied from their masters and are now doing the very same things that the imperialists came to do and are equally plundering the country and taking the wealth back to Europe, where their children are studying and are having jobs. Very few of them have their children in Uganda. So there is a big challenge, but I don't like that narrative that somehow they are feeling sorry for us. Therefore, they are giving us things as if we are beggars. We are not beggars in this relationship. These are reparations in my own.
All right, we're nearing the end of this discussion. Let's do some way forward and closing remarks, and I'll begin with you, Esther.
I think for me, the first and foremost issue I'm going to talk about is prioritization of the health sector. Again, back to the reason as to why we are here. Honestly speaking, even after the US had cut funding to Uganda, you know, if only we had prioritized those health gaps that, you know, were created by the US government, maybe we wouldn't even be here talking about the fact that government needs to be held accountable, that government needs to allocate more money for the health sector and prioritize it as much as we prioritize other sectors. But it is because we have a gap that we are calling for the government to actually fill. Because as long as we do not fill that gap, people are going to continue dying over preventable issues that you can actually handle as a country. And that's one. Two, for me, I think we need we're calling upon Parliament to prioritize and pass some of these laws and policies that they have kept in their confines for a very long time on reproductive health, especially. We have the sexual offences bill. We have the ESC SRHR bill at the regional level. We have the human assisted technologies bill. We have so many laws and bills that I feel like if Parliament sat and actually passed them, because they talk about key aspects of reproductive health, maybe they would somehow, somewhere, give Ugandans the power to know that actually, you know what, the law is protecting us. But alas, right now we are going into election period. I don't think if we should have hope, because now we know that priorities are somehow switching to politics and all. But nevertheless, for me, I feel if Parliament also sat down and was able to support Ugandans by giving us progressive laws and policies on health, especially, maybe it would also somehow benefit us in a way to be able to know how we are going to fulfill our health rights. Because right now we are so scattered, you know, and I think everyone needs to come on board. The executive should come on board, Parliament should come on board, judiciary should come on board. We have so many cases that we are filing each and every day because a woman, girl, a man out there is having their rights violated, but because judiciary somehow may be busy, or they are not prioritizing, or they are not even understanding the aspects of what we are saying. So a lot of things are affected, and trust me, today it could be me, tomorrow it is you. All of us are going to face the repercussions if we do not come out and speak for ourselves and speak against these issues. Otherwise, I feel like silence is deadly at this point. Come out and speak, and maybe tomorrow we are going to have a better healthcare system in Uganda.
Rose, in a minute.
I think I want to agree with my colleague Esther. Our government needs to cover the gap. Our friends have run away. We are now looking to them. Before, they were abdicating their responsibility and saying, part of these budgets will be covered by our partners. Our partners have gone. So the government must, by all means, we saw a judge who just lost a husband in a national referral hospital, and they had to come up and make a statement calling for more funding from Lago. So let them give them that funding. We have very good doctors. We have very good nurses. We have excellent healthcare providers. People come from all over the world to learn from our doctors in Mulago, but they are being so grossly underfunded. Why? I think this needs to stop, and we need to immediately cover some of these gaps.
And maybe just to mention, dear viewers, no, not viewers, dear listeners, that in case you're facing or undergoing any health rights violations, like I said earlier, SRHR is an organization that uses the laws to advance health and human rights. Please reach out to us on our toll-free line, which is 0800 3044. We shall come to your rescue and provide pro bono or free legal aid services for health and human rights violations that you may face.
All right, with that, we come to the end of Spectrum. Thank you very much, dear ladies, for making time to be here. Thank you very much, dear listeners, for tuning in and contributing to this discussion. Next, we have the news in English.